Is China's tech industry a threat to United States security? You know, we don't have a lot of time on this. The clock is tick-tocking away. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel.
China is a problem, although it's important to understand that the core of the problem actually lies in the way Americans approach our political economy. You know, it's this sort of allowing for monopolization, allowing for shareholder primacy. If you combine those two things, what you end up with are financiers offshoring the things that you need, either destroying them or offshoring them, which is sometimes the same thing. So it's at open markets, what we try to do is sort of distinguish between the Chinese who are playing the game as you would expect your foe to play the game, and the people at home who are like helping them play the game. And so what we can do actually, besides focusing on the Chinese, is also focusing on the folks here who are helping the Chinese.
Yeah. This whole neoliberal experiment that really started in a big way with the Reagan administration, and then, Reagan and Bush ultimately negotiating NAFTA and proposing, I think it got followed through toward the end of the Clinton administration or maybe early in Bush, of giving, most favored nation or permanent normal trade relations to China. This was sold to us, and I remember this very well back in the very late 80s, but mostly the early 90s, 91, 92, 93, 94. It was sold to us as something that would produce world peace. There were books about this. It was a subtext to Francis Fukuyama's, The End of History and the Last Man, or something like that. And it was basically that if we, as a nation, the United States, and this is how, of course, the European Union was sold to European countries, because they'd had two wars on the European continent, if we are all interdependent with each other for trade, for commerce, then we're less likely to ultimately hurt ourselves by screwing up that relationship by declaring war on somebody. And it makes a lot of sense at a certain level, but it seems to me that even though it was sold as this is a way to have peace in the world, what was really going on was that these giant corporations were using this as a smokescreen to basically find cheaper labor and to find places where they could manufacture things where they didn't have to comply with EPA rules about the environment. And that consideration of peace, world peace, was not even on the radar screen of these giant monopolistic corporations. They don't give a rat's ass about it, and that's where we're at now in the United States. What do you think of that analysis?
No, I think you're pretty much dead on. I mean, and the thing is that there is something to be said about interdependence equaling peace and mutual prosperity. I mean, that's we can cooperate. Cooperating with other nations is better than fighting with them. I mean, that's common sense. The problem, and this is going back to what happened with the WTO, with the Uruguay round of the GATT, which was passed in 1994, was negotiated by the Clinton administration. The problem is that the Uruguay round of the GATT basically opened the door, not just to big corporations, but to monopolization. Up to that point, we had a very interdependent relationship with the Japanese, with the Europeans. It led to exactly what you're talking about, peace and prosperity. It led to mutual cooperation. That's a good thing. But the Clinton people, they opened the door to monopoly, and then you jump ahead. Just within 5 or 6 years, suddenly you find all of these systems are monopolized at the global level. And that means that all of something really important, all the chemicals that we rely on for our drugs, suddenly they're in China. All of a certain kind of semiconductor, it's in Taiwan. All of a certain kind of component for electronics is in Korea. Now, that kind of hyper specialization. Some people say it's efficient. I don't think it is. It's actually very inefficient. But what it also does is it creates a system in which any kind of problem anywhere can lead to massive disruptions in the system. And it also gives to other countries, especially China, leverage over us. That is fantastically dangerous, and that is leading us to either some kind of a bad conflict that's going to be very damaging, or to some kind of a compromise that's going to be almost as damaging.
China controls the manufacture of the raw materials for 95% of all the pharmaceuticals consumed in the United States. About half of them, I guess, are manufactured in India from those raw materials made in China, and the other half are made in other places, many of them in China itself. Doesn't China have the ability right now to kill literally tens of millions of Americans simply by withholding these chemicals?
Absolutely. They can shut off the flow tomorrow. And this is,
so Trump has highlighted this. But it seems like he's not doing anything about it. You'd have to work with Congress to do something about this rather than just rave about it. We just have 30 seconds,
that's the thing
Barry.
About the Trump administration is, the thing about the Trump administration is they often actually point their finger at the right thing. When they pointed their finger at this problem of concentration of APIs, these pharmaceutical ingredients in China. That's a big deal. It's a big problem. The Trumpies said, "Hey, there's a problem there. We're going to do something about it." The problem is they're so incoherent, they're so confused, and they're so into working all by themselves that they have failed to actually do anything about it. And so we actually need a radically different approach if we're going to do something about this fantastically dangerous situation.
I'm absolutely with you. I think that we need to go back to Alexander Hamilton's 1793 letter to Congress. 1791 it was. Anyhow, Barry C. Lynn, he's the director of the Open Markets Institute, openmarketsinstitute.org. Thank you, Barry.